Zdravo svima, petak je, u trenutku kada snimamo ovu epizodu, to jest poslednji dan Sarajevo Film Festivala i radimo poslednji intervju u okviru projekta Agelast i Sarajevo Film Festival koji je ovog puta podržao Mastercard. Kao što smo rekli u svim prethodnim epizodama, Mastercard i Sarajevo Film Festival već nekoliko godina za redom imaju specijalnu nagradu za promovisanje rodne ravnopravnosti koju treba da čekirate. A u razgovoru koji sledi imat ćete prilike da čujete nikog drugog do Lynne Ramsay. U pitanju je rediteljka iz Glasgowa koja je poznata najviše po filmu We Need to Talk About Kevin, naravno po njenom posljednjem filmu iz 2017. godine koji nosi naziv You Were Never Really Here sa glavnom ulogom, Hoakinom Finiksom glumi glavnu ulogu u tom filmu, ali naravno govorit ćemo o njenim ranijim filmovima kao što je Morvern Callar ili Ratcatcher. Sve u svemu teme kojima se ona bavi u svom radu, opusu, to jest i načinu na koji ona te teme donosi u život je tema našeg sledećeg razgovora. Dame i gospodo, Lynne Ramsay, uživajte. We can start.
Okay, action.
Action, sorry. Welcome, Lynne. How are you?
I'm good. It's been a very interesting time. My flight got delayed to get here, and I ended up in Frankfurt. Then I went to Vienna. Then they lost my bags. Then it's just the whole crazy shit.
The whole shebang.
The whole shebang. It was a bit. I'm kind of seeing the humour in it now. You know? I would like my suitcase back though, but I love Sarajevo. It's beautiful. It's like it's been so nice, and everyone's been so lovely here. You know. So,
of course. It's a pleasure to have you here. Of course.
Yeah.
You just had your masterclass. How was it? What was it was about? Yeah.
It was actually really lovely because I was just, I was feeling not well because I had COVID a few weeks ago and I'm still kind of feeling a bit not well. And so I was like, oh gosh, this is going to be hard, because I'm still feeling a bit exhausted with it. But it was actually really beautiful. It was really good questions and a great moderator and just like really good questions for the audience. And it went really fast when it goes like that, So it was actually really good,
Yeah, and while we were waiting for you to finish your masterclass, we've been listening to the soundtrack for Morvern Callar, and it's pretty amazing soundtrack though. And I want to talk about it a little bit because of all of the interviews I've listened to and seen you talking about your films, almost nobody's talking about the soundtrack.
I know, they should talk about that soundtrack. I'm really proud of that soundtrack, and I just saw the film recently, and it was with a very young audience, and I think the music was what really
resonated with them.
Yeah, and what's strange about that film, it didn't age very much, Even though she's got a Walkman on in the film, it just looks the same as, what's the earbuds that you wear now, and it's kind of cool, and the film hasn't really aged. It's strange. It's still quite appealing to a young audience, and they thought it was really funny as well. And it's a dark film as well, but they were laughing a lot, and they all clapped at the end. So it was really a special, it's a special moment, and I'd really love to get that soundtrack out in vinyl. So I'm trying to persuade a record company to do that for me because it was only in CD at the time.
Well, maybe it's gonna be a little bit harder to find rights and clearances for the song 20 years old.
Yeah, no, maybe, but Warper, the record company now, they're a film company who do Aphex Twin and stuff. They actually did the soundtrack, so maybe they could help me a bit.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting choice of the songs. You have some awesome groups like Boards of Canada and Aphex Twin. Come on, the legend himself.
I know.
And you have a couple of songs from Aphex in the soundtrack.
Well, I love his stuff. I mean, I think he's like a classical musician, really, but of all different sorts. I think he's a complete genius, But we've got Can as well, which is a German band that are amazing. And then we've got like Mamas and the Papas, which is so eclectic, but that suited the scene at the end of the film. So, and we've got Stereo Lab and Boards Canada and lots of other things. It was just so much fun, because we made that soundtrack before we made the film.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we were listening to it while we were shooting. And I didn't get clearances for everything, but I got maybe 90%. I got the clearances, you know.
Nice. And I tried to, jam as much of your movies into the shortest period of time, which I would not recommend.
Yeah, poor you.
It's quite difficult to digest all of it all over again.
Yeah.
But there's a value to, watching movies second time or third time, some of those movies. And, there are certain themes and topics that go throughout your whole body of work that I would like to, discuss with you.
Yeah.
And for example, well, we started talking about Morvern Callar, and then you have this, overlaying theme of grief and the way we're handling the grief or do not handle the grief or escape from it. And, how do you look? What do you think of the grief as a process, and how did it made it to the film?
Well, life is grief,
The whole life, entire life.
No, of course not. I mean, no, I just think I've gravitated to characters dealing with some kind of like a trauma in the past, and we sort of do live in these sort of traumatic times, and it's just like, maybe it's just a gravitation, or maybe I'm just a dark motherfucker. I just don't know. So,
well, you are dark, no doubt about that.
I know, but I always try and put comic elements. I mean, I like lightness as well. It's not that I want to just be dark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so to me, they're always funny. Like, but Glaswegians have a really dark sense of humour, so maybe I get the humour more than other people. But funnily enough, like, especially in Morvern Callar, like, they got the humour this time, and it's a bit bonkers and it's a bit surreal, and it was amazing how much this audience, like this young audience, responded to it and laughed at it and found it funnier than I think they did it in the original time. Like, so people took it very seriously, but I'd always seen her as a bit of a cowboy, really, like, going off into the Wild West. And I co-wrote that film with my friend who's an animator. Like, she's dead now, but she died quite young. But Liana Donini, and she's a surrealist, you know what I mean? She was like, her films would be like, have things like the Grand Prix goes through the background, or some horses riding. She had a brilliant imagination, so we just had real fun like doing that,
Yeah, but for example, the previous film, The Ratcatcher, you do not so much grieving, but there's an underlying level of, guilt that eats you up, and creates the world that you're living in, which is already bad as it is. And, both of those films, and in many others, but both of those films, those earlier ones, they have this strong, as punchline in the beginning with these traumatic experiences.
That's right.
And those traumatic experiences in your later body of work became, darker and overpowering in later elements of the life. And I was just interested in the evolution of it and the reason how it came to be, having such a strong traumatic elements in her film.
Well, Ratcatcher was a case in point. I found a location before I wrote Ratcatcher. I always knew I wanted it around that canal. The canal in Glasgow is kind of a dark, mysterious place, but there's also these strange, it's where you go to kiss your first boyfriend and all that. It was like the kids hang out. And then there was a paint factory as well. I wanted to put this in the film, but I couldn't. Where I remember when I was a kid that they dumped all the paint into the water, and so the swans went through the water, and it was all like a kaleidoscope of colour, and I was like, wow, what a magical place, So
ironically,
But then when we went to shoot Ratcatcher, the canal was too polluted, so we couldn't shoot anything in the canal. So my production designer at the time, and we were just getting at a film school. We were all like first-time feature filmmakers, and all the crew thought, who are these kids, the Glaswegian crew. And she built a canal in that film. And right now I would think that's totally crazy. Like, I think it was because we were so naive, But the character, I suppose it was like, it starts off, there was a lot of kids that died in that canal, or they were playing too close and blah, blah, blah. And it started off from there. And
there's a history of it.
There's a history. My brother used to ice skate down it, and I was thinking that's totally mental. Easily you just go under. And they used to put logs in it and things like that, and so you get caught into it. But my dad saved a boy from the canal for really. There's a scene in Ratcatcher a bit like that.
Oh, so that's like the copy from real life.
Well, it's
homage.
A homage to my dad, because he won a medal because he could only swim underwater. and a lady was screaming because her child got caught under the canal, and you could see his coat. And so she came and knocked his door, and he was doing a night shift, but he got up, so he was in his underpants, and he had to climb over all this. His feet were all cut with glass running through to get this kid. Wow. And he got a gold medal from the Lord Provost for saving this kid, but he couldn't actually swim above water, so it was kind of pretty wild thing to do, you know.
Yeah. Well, when we talk about Ratcatcher, for example, I think that there's the most of you in that film in particular.
Yeah, probably.
Not just because it's local, it's Glasgow and stuff. You know, it's also your first film. In a way, you know, so...
First films are always kind of like a stamp of you, you know. I mean, I'm just really close to my heart, and the kids in that film really got me through, and they're all non-actors, and it was a terrible film to make because, you know, it was my first feature. I'd never... You know, I thought it was too many crew. I was trying to move away from everybody. Like, I'd only done a 15-minute silent short before, and it was really, me and the DP were traumatised because it rained the whole time. Okay. And we didn't have weather. Well, we did have weather cover, but this guy wouldn't use it, and the bond came down, and by the end we were like, oh my God, that is the worst shoot we've ever been on. But the children and the actors really got me through, because I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I want to make feature films after this.
But you know what I like about your films when you look at them in succession, it's you have really a lot of close-ups of actors, and within the close-up they change their emotions. So, but when we talk about your latest film, for example, it's not such a big deal with Hoakinom Finiksom.
No.
But if we talk about the children, for example, in the first film, no, it's a completely different story. How do you achieve that? Yeah,
well, I loved working with non-professional actors a lot when I started, because we didn't have any money, so I would just street cast, you know what I mean? Like, and then my brother was, I remember I got him to pose for something, like, you know, like, just because I didn't have an actor for a shot, and then I realised he was amazing. So he was in Gasman, and he was like, this is taking too long. He was like, he didn't understand why everything took so long, you know, like. And his daughter was also really, really good. And then I worked with Tommy Flanagan, who was a dad in Ratcatcher, but he was an actor, you know. But he'd done like Face Off and stuff like that. And then I worked with Samantha Morton, who's like a non-professional actor anyway, because she just goes into her trance, you know. So she worked with the other girl, Kathleen, who's in it. She'd never done anything. She'd only been a barber, a gentleman's barber. So there was a non-actor, and then there was an actor. Like, it was quite interesting, the dynamic. And then I worked with Tildom Svinton, who's just awesome. She's just awesome. She's actually the godmother of my daughter, you know. And John C. Reilly's the godfather of my daughter, you know, because he's awesome as well, you know. So Well, so, and then it was Hoakinom, obviously.
Hoakinom. We'll talk about Hoakinom later on. So don't worry about it. We'll get there. We'll get there. But but it seems like that those first two films, you know, they set it up. For example, your aesthetics. They set it up certain themes that you're obsessing about. This element of darkness that goes through all of it. Also elements of humor, you know, elements of comedy. Strong one though, harder to see, but they are there.
They are there.
They are there. And this and all of this package, this certain aesthetic and the way the violence is shown, or to be precise, not shown within the film, but it's ever present in it, and there's this, you know, type of suspended violence in the atmosphere of the films, even though you don't explicitly see them, kind of sets up the stage for your, you know, arguably the greatest film you've done in your career, which is we need to talk about Kevin, which explores something that over time turns out to be, you know, topic that we need to talk about more. Seems like as societies. And recently, in recent history, we also had here a bunch of, you know, similar situations going on, and that kinds of, you know, makes this film relevant, even though it's been 13 years now. So I want to talk about Kevin.
All right, okay, good.
Let's talk about Kevin, right? What was the premise, the idea that started this whole journey of the film? Because I know that film took a long time in pre-production.
Well, first of all, it was a really hard book to have, because it was a book of letters, you know, like Eva writes to Franklin, and it wasn't visual or anything like that much. But it was really dense, and it's a brilliant subject matter. Lionel Shriver's a brilliant writer. But so I was sent it through my agent, who actually represented Lionel too. And I think a lot of directors had turned it down because they were saying, you can't adapt this, it's unadaptable. But then, so I think I was last in line or something, and I was like, God, I read it in one night, but it's a really dense book. It's like 500 and something pages, and so we had, my dad had just passed away when I was in Scotland, and I got this phone call from a production company, and they were like, I don't know how, but they got a hold of the script, and they were like, we want to make this, we want to make it for whatever, blah, blah. You can have whoever you like in it. And then the financial crash happened. And they just wanted to do like Twilight or something,
Oh, like, it was the time of Twilight Saga. Yeah. You just reminded me of that.
I know. So they put their eggs in the Twilight basket, and I was like, but I'd wanted to cast Ezra, and I'd been to America, and I saw these DPs, and I was in prep, and they pulled it because it was a crash, the financial crash. So I was like, oh my God, it was so depressing. And it was a bit longer, it was only, but it wasn't that long. It was 120 pages, and that basically, I went to Stromboli, the island near Sicily, which is a volcano. And I started free diving, because my friend was a free diver. And I lived in this blinking hill, this guy that was renting this place told us it was like 5 minutes up the hill. It was actually right next to the volcano, and there was bits of volcanic rock coming out, and it was like, you had to climb up there, and it was like this real rugged kind of thing. I've still got cactus things in my fingers, but I wrote it in this house with hardly any electricity, and I wrote it, I just condensed it all, and I almost had to cut it on paper, and I got it down to like 92 pages. So, because I thought, there's no way I'm not going to make this film. So if I've got to make it for less money, then I'll find a way. But it was really challenging because it was almost like editing in paper, cut to here, cut to there, But I learned a lot about editing in that film,
Well, did that influence the fragmentical nature of the film?
Yeah, it definitely did, because I had to find all these timelines. Because the book, of course, you can go anywhere, and it's more flashbacks. But I had to find a way of constructing these timelines that kind of are interwoven in a way, a bit like music or something. So it was really challenging. It was like, oh my God, it was like playing chess or something, because I was like, I'm trying to find a way to get this down. I literally put like there was a thing about the sprinkler system, and you hear that in the sound. That's in the script. That's like, that the sound will bring you back. So I started looking at the way the sound could subconsciously bring you to a new time zone.
It had to be difficult to edit that one.
It was, although I had a brilliant editor called Joe Beatty, who worked with Werner Herzog and for many years. But it was a good edit, though. You know what I mean? Like it was like the one you were never really here. It was a nightmare because it was so squished. The time zone for Cannes and stuff and them. But I really enjoyed editing that movie. But yeah, but there was always a good feeling about that movie right from the beginning, you know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
It's like, of course it was, the first cut's always too long, and I'll never listen to any producer who says, oh, I'm used to first cuts,
Mm-hmm.
I don't ever show the producer the first cut as the director, because it's always kind of horrible, and then you find the film, what I mean?
To watch the first cut, you need to have a trained eye. In order to imagine how things are going to turn.
You've got to see it, and of course it's like, it's a bit,
Especially with a film like that.
Because you're moulding something, so you're finding how to mould it and stuff like that. But it was quite constructed in the script form, so it felt quite constructed in that edit, and I worked on the sound really early as well, and it was a really supportive kind of. It was BBC, and everyone loved the film right from the get-go, so I felt great in that edit,
And what I like about it is it has this something called objective correlative in a way that because you're talking about the topic, but you're taking it to all different angles to it without actually naming the thing, without directly going into the thing, which is consistent with the way previously you've shown violence. So you don't see the act of violence itself. You see the moments before, and you see the moments later, or maybe in different time periods. You just see the aftermath of it with a patch on the eye or something like that. You don't see the actual violence, right? So. And I like the psychology of it, but because it goes hand in hand with the strong psychological character of the film, because you deal with the psychopathy in the family, as a family as a whole, and the society as a whole, and the way they react to it.
God, I want you to write about this. It's a brilliant interpretation. You can do an article for me about this movie.
Thank you. But I want you to talk about the process of creating that and the way you were thinking about it and to put it in work.
Yeah, well, I mean, some people, I suppose that I'm not giving the catharsis of the violence in a way some maybe other films do, you know what I mean? Which some people hate, you know, but they want the catharsis of the violence. You know, Tarantino could be really good at that. Or, oh boy, I love that, you know, and that's fun, you know. But I suppose in this film in particular, I was looking at that I took the catharsis away in a way, you know what I mean? Like, and left the aftermath, and it's kind of powerful, you know what I mean? It's like, but if you don't see, if it's only catharsis, you don't have consequence with violence, do you? You know what I mean? It's just cartoon, you know?
If you don't deal with the consequences, but also if you don't deal with the causes of violence. You know, in psychopathy, it's a different thing because someone is born that way. But it shows you that there's like bunch of red flags all along the way, you know, growing up, and there's also this.
You never really hears much more about the consequences, and that one's much more about the red flags.
The red flags, So and there's this, you know, this heavy feeling of you know the dichotomy, you know, of these two forces inside of a parent, of, you know, having a child, not being able to connect with the child at the same time, and you know, not knowing what to do about it, and creating this as one of the narratives in the film, you know, shows you that even in the worst setup, even in the worst scenarios of violence, you know, the violent act and whoever it is that makes it, it's not just, it doesn't come from nothing. You know, there's an evolution to it.
Yeah, there definitely is, and it's not black and white. I mean, you know, even though Eva in that movie, you know, she sort of resents that she's lost her life as a traveller, and she kind of resents the baby, and then she's not into the goo-goo gaga. She's just not that kind of mother, you know? And so that she wonders if that resentment is part of what happened, why it's more complex, you know what I mean? And then Franklin plays a part as well, the husband, because he doesn't want to see the violence, and then the violence comes to him in the end because he wants to be blind to it, you know? And then and then we take your first two films, and in Ratcatcher we have this feeling, overwhelming feeling of guilt, and in, you know, Morvern Callar we have this theme of grief, and in Talk About Kevin, we have both of those things. Yeah, that's
presented.
Right. God, you should write a book.
No. Thank you. But this all, you know, prepares the stage, of course, for You Were Never Really Here with Hoakinom, you know, where all of those elements now coming together in form of crescendo. You know, but before that, before we dive into it, I just want to talk about. There was a really tight schedule with this film, as far as I knew.
Very much.
Very much. How many days you had to do everything?
Well, what happened was that he got a space came up, because he was meant to make a film, and he said, "Can you shoot this in like a few months or something?" And I was like, I thought I wasn't finished the script, and I was like, I thought I was going to shoot in the fall, but I thought it's him, I'm going to do it, you know, somehow I'm going to do it. So at the time I get to New York, I've got so little prep. And I'm looking at 140 locations. I'm casting for scratch. I don't do any soft prep, which you normally do, so you're kind of a bit more prepared. I'm still rewriting the script, and because they say the financier just blanks, outrageously kind of blank, the blank statement was, you've got 28 days and that's it, you know. So it didn't relate to how long the script was, so I had to cut the script. So, for instance, the scene with the surveillance cameras and stuff like that I'll need a few hours to shoot that, so I knew I couldn't do like the big bally thing, Old Boy or something like that. I couldn't do that. I had to think about it in a different way. But I suppose it made me really inventive. I was like, okay, I've really got to think about this, because I'm not even going to try to shoot some big action sequence in 2 hours. It's just not going to work. You know, I'm experienced to know enough that won't work. so you need to be clever, you know. But I saved some days for underwater stuff, and because they don't have a tank, you know. I don't know if I would do that again, because of course, when you save days, like normally a day will cost maybe $100,000 or something for the crew. But by the time we did because we did the tank in London, the underwater, it's a scene where he takes his mother's body. They didn't want to spend any money, so it was like being back at film school. I had like 4 people on the crew. I had to phone Hoakinom Finiksom, you know. So I was thinking, God, I will never do that. I'll never do that again, you know. So it was more the editing schedule. It was an intense shoot, intense prep. The shoot was amazing. I really enjoyed the shoot. I didn't really enjoy the editing because it was like there was an expectation that I could just turn in something really quickly. And I don't think the financier liked the film. He was always like, I'm not sure about this, and, you know, blah, blah, blah. He was playing French, and sorry, don't mind if you insult any French people. And he was never really that keen, and so it was a bit depressing through the editing. And then he said to me, "It'll never get into Cannes." And I said, "Well, I think we should go to Venice anyhow, because, like, really, you know, I don't have enough time to get to Cannes, you know." So anyway, he phoned me up and he wanted a meeting in London, and I thought, oh my God, he's probably going to pull the plug for the 3 days that I still need. And then he just told me, the film is in Cannes. And I'm like, what? It's got storyboards in it. And he goes, oh, that's fine, just leave the storyboards. And I'm like, I'm not going to Cannes with storyboards in a film. So I ended up, I had like 2 weeks to shoot this stuff. I had to cut it in really quickly, like, and even 2 weeks, and we still were doing the edits, you know what I mean? It didn't have any credits on it, but there was no way I was going to use storyboards. And so it was just this mad thing, and it was like, and luckily Hoakinom was pretty cool, because he agreed to come to London, because the financier said, oh, you can just make the underwater stuff subjective, you know. And I'm like, what? No, we need the actor, you know what I mean? Then, you know, some cloudy water or something, you know. I think just to save money. But he was a trooper, and it was cool that he came, you know, like, and
I've heard I heard that when he came to London, he actually met the crew first, not you. He actually met the
producer,
not producer, the crews for, you know, the requisite. Props crew.
That was that. Oh, I get it now. No, that was in New York. Yeah,
that was in New York. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I had a brilliant props guy, and he was amazing, you know. But poor, what do we call him again? But anyway, we call it, his name is Marks or something like that, or, you know, I called him Mad Max. But he was fantastic, this guy. But in the book, you would never really hear it. It was all things like, you know, there's quite a lot of devices, like, you know, Joe's get some kind of jammer thing, radio thing, like kind of James Bondy kind of devicey stuff. And Hoakinom was just like, nah, that's crap. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. And, you know, and I kind of just thought, this is just crap. You know, don't do this. And it was good that he did that, because all that stuff was unnecessary. But the poor props guy came out, and I think he was quivering in fear, you know. But and then I met Hoakinom that night, and I was like, oh my God, you know, because, you know, he's got a brilliant instinct for what's bullshit and what's not bullshit. I mean, it's like it's kind of like almost supernatural, you know what I mean? So I think he had a lot to do with how that script evolved, you know, because we would meet and have conversations, and he lived around the corner from me in Brooklyn, so I was just like running around with my computer to his garden, like in the middle, you know, some crazy hour, you know, what do you think of this? And, you know, so it was, you know, it was a really exciting kind of process. But I think it was really, you know, he tests you. He's not like, oh, I'm just going to take anything, you know, like, just because you're the director. So
he tests you.
But in a good way. In a good way. It's like, it's intimidating. It's, you know, it's like totally terrifying. So at first I was like, oh my God, you know. But then what he was doing was quite questioning the things that, like, didn't hold water in the scripts, because the script wasn't really, you know, it wasn't.
The script was like 90 pages or something.
Yeah. But it was like, it was probably 100 and something before I went to New York, but I had to cut it. So I think, you know, the things that had been in the book that I'd kept in the script, that he sort of smelled as if a bit like inauthentic or not, you know what I mean? developing the character in a sort of different way that he really sniffed stuff out, you know. So actually, in the end, I really appreciated that. It was like I owe him for that, you know.
Yeah. Okay. We don't have much time left, and I want to talk about a bunch of things with you. So I'm just gonna go to the main topics of the latest film. Right? You were never really here. First thing that I'm interested in, you have accented the relationship between son and mother, which is really interesting and one of the strong points of the film.
Yeah, I think so
the way they connect and their relationship, the dynamic of their relationship is very interesting, especially with the with the Hitchcock homage in the moment, like with the Psycho, right? The one thing, but this thing reflects. In a way, the end of the film, because you've changed the end of the book that you made the film on, and this change of the ending completely changes the narrative. Because the narrative seems to me now talks with the crisis of masculinity in a way. There is no resolution to the situation that was presented. So I want you to tell us a little bit more about that process and this particular theme in the movie.
Well, I'd say a bit of that was down to Joachim as well, where like in terms of like we talked a lot about the end, and I think both of us felt like it shouldn't be like the kind of, you know, the hero character. It should be the girl that kind of saves him in a way. Like there's an ambiguity. And then with the Hitchcock kind of moment, that wasn't really a homage. I kind of need to thank the actress Judith Roberts, who plays the mother, and she was in Eraserhead. You know that?
Oh, really?
Yeah, she's a girl in the Chorus of Hall or something. And I'd wanted to use her in Kevin, but she'd fallen and broken her arm because she's a really amazing woman. And the two of them just had a bit of a rapport together. It was really beautiful to watch. And she just... I said, when we were doing that scene, I said, what would you be watching on television really quickly? You know, like she's like, oh, the birds. Or no, the birds or something, whatever it was, Psycho.
Yeah.
And so it was her that came up, and I was like, that is genius, you know, like, so it was just, so that's responding to that.
So there was actually a lot of improvisation.
Well, there wasn't loads. It was because I didn't have enough time to improvise too much. Yeah. But luckily, he just does one takes, you know what I mean? You don't need to do 2 takes with Joaquin Phoenix, you know? And if he does another take, what he does is he does something completely different and unexpected. You don't know what's going to happen. Like, there was one time I remember we were shooting in this kind of, you know, like in the sort of brothely place or whatever, and he just fell in the stairs as if he had narcolepsy about like River Phoenix, you know what I mean? Like, and it was just, we were all like, did he have a heart attack? But he just was like, trying something. But what's so brilliant about that is that you've got all these choices in the edit to play it really funny or play it really dark or play it. It's just like genius, you know. The hairs in the back of my neck stood up sometimes when I was watching him because he's so good. So that helped with the time frame. Yeah.
And the thing that we talked about during this interview was, you know, the way you do not show violence. You know? And I think that the last scene completely encapsulated this because you completely, it seems like a part of the edit is missing out. Just completely abrupt cut, and then you see this governor or whatever he is completely sliced open, and then you have this one-shot scene of
him having a crack up.
It's insane.
I know. Well, that was one of the when he did that. I thought, I mean, he did this weird thing where it looked, when he was shaking, it looked like the camera was doing some different speed, and I was like, what? That's insane. It was kind of supernatural, but what a performance. And then, you know, it just, but I mean, a lot of things came to me when I was in Santorini. I used to live in Santorini. Like, I had the idea where he kind of has a kind of suicide bit at the end, but he's had the ideation all through, but he doesn't do it, and no one gives a shit anyway, you know, and he's really lost. So it was, and I told Jonathan Ames that, and he was like, oh, it's a good, it just came, it was a flash thing, you know, sometimes when you get a flash and it's really good, you know, it's like, it doesn't happen often, but it's good when it does. So, yeah, it's like, I was looking at doing a lot of post-violence. I mean, sometimes like it's like necessity is the mother of invention. So you've got like, you know, I knew I have to approach this in a different way. So I thought, I'll do it where you see the aftermath. You don't really see, and people were going, it's so violent, and I'm going, there's nothing, there's no violence. The most violent things in a bloody CCTV camera.
Yeah,
so,
the,
you know what I mean?
only violence is
yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have enough time.
All right, don't worry. It's such a pleasure to talk to you, though.
Thank you.
I hope we do it again, you know?
Yeah, I'm hoping to do it again, too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed Sarajevo. This is the last day of the festival.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I can chill out now a bit. Well, apart from the red carpet thing tonight, I can chill out a bit.
Thank you for being here.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.